Hello, and welcome to In the Court of Wenton King. We're doing some more Sabbath albums because I thought it was a good idea. We weren't really going to do this. I was going to do the Wenton name, and then I just never did it, and I couldn't be bothered. But it occurred to me the next three are all completely different with different singers. So that's a thing, and that's just this is when you get back on top, what not to do. Exactly that. What's the worst thing you can possibly do to completely take a nosedive of success after blowing it in the 70s and getting back again, blowing it again? So that's what we're going to talk about, and it is the Marbles. This is the other one, the next one. There's always two, isn't there? This isn't the one people talk about. This is the other one, a mirror situation, and that'll be repeated at the end of the 80s as well. And obviously the legend is that it's the lesser album. My opinion on that changes, I think, but it is the lesser album. The sound is fantastic. I think it's too much Dio. I think that's what it is. And Dio, to a certain extent, has changed as well, which has been talked about. They got much more successful very quickly, and that changes people. They got the Black Sabbath name, but that's combined with a new band. It's all fresh, and their sort of new writing style, and that it's a Heaven and Hell is a Dio Iommi album with help from Jeff Nichols, which is a completely different thing to Black Sabbath, where they'd leave Tony Iommi on drugs in the studio to walk around naked and go bing bong on his guitar, and then make some riffs, and then Ozzy would go nah, 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 make up a tune, and then Geezer would write some words to what Ozzy had made up. So this is completely different, and Dio obviously is so different. But that meant Heaven and Hell, of course, is the fantastic album. It's Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Those are the two best Sabbath albums, basically. Although very, very early stuff is very special. So what happened is it changed the dynamic of the band. Is the problem? A band has a balance. In Genesis, it was about the imbalance, and when they found a balance, it was boring. So this is the opposite in a way, because Geezer wrote the lyrics, but Geezer had stopped writing the lyrics. So you've got Tony Iommi, who's the boss. I'm the boss of this band. It's my band. I've been here since da da da. But you've got Dio, so you haven't got that balance. A lot of it is to do with because Geezer wasn't there for Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell was written when he came back. I think he heard the material and came back actually, as well as Dio singing differently. This is the other Dio. He's got heavier, and this will be for the rest of the 80s. This would be what he would sound like, rather than the more epic, cleaner voice. He's singing heavy. And a lot of that is to do with the way they recorded it. I think they were in the house in LA, but they all had tiny little amps, and they all sat around writing and coming up with stuff. So it wouldn't have been loud. Now they're a rock band, so they jam. Full blast with full Marshall amps, and full drum kit, and Dio with a PA probably going and that makes different music. And I think that's why there's it is less subtle. The production is fantastic. Talk about that. People talk about it being too similar to Heaven and Hell, but I don't think that's true at all. It's actually different enough, I think. And there's a lot of really good stuff on there. The opening song, I've always had a bit of about, strangely, but at the same time, you've got the trilogy of Son of the Southern Cross, E5150, My Rules, and you've got Falling Off the Edge of the World as well. Really, really good stuff. But there is more Dio, and it is less subtle. It is a louder album. That's what I'm going to say.
I can't believe my review for this is going to be any different to the review for the last one.
What was the last one? What? Never Say Die? Or Dehumanizer?
Well, I can't remember now.
Dehumanizer was the only one you'd done with Dio.
Oh, is it? Yeah, it'd be that one. Because I just can't get past it. It's just like...
My name is Lucifer! Please take my hand!
It's just ridiculous. What the hell? He's considered a rock god now, or a rock angel. Mm. And I just find that the things that were great about Sabbath, they're not here anymore. They're just...
It's a different band.
It's completely different.
It is a different band.
Different. Actually, at least the titles are very similar.
That's true, yeah. Interesting, yeah.
That's about it, really. There are memorable songs on here. The sign of the Southern Cross keeps going through my head, and that this is a really hard review because it's got nothing that I like and most things that I hate. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say about it.
That's it. Done. Yeah, it is Sabbath for the 80s. And it's weird, you think about it, you can't really do Sabbath with Ozzy for the 80s, strangely, because Ozzy was so successful in the 80s. It needed that's this one, not really Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell is very 70s. This is, if they'd not lost the plot, this is what they should have sounded like in the 80s, and Dio knew that. He was together and focused and all that stuff. But also, I mean, you've got the Jeff Nichols thing, and he wrote some of Heaven and Hell and did backing vocals on Heaven and Hell. Dio did all his own backing vocals on this one, tellingly. But I mean, Jeff Nichols does the sound effects. He became the sound effects man. So E5150, really, I think, it's almost certainly a Jeff Nichols thing, actually. I wonder if it's sort of people attribute it to Geezer. I don't think it is. I think it's Jeff Nichols doing his sound effects. Because this started from them doing the heavy metal movie, doing the soundtrack to that, and so they contributed Mob Rules and a load of sound effects as well. And in there is, the E5150 thing. You have to remember they didn't get to know each other as a band. They didn't get to do that because of the weird way it all came together. And Geezer wasn't even there, and Bill's gone, and you've got Vinny Appice. So you get these two camps. You get Tony and Geezer not talking to anyone and not liking to go to after stage parties, after show parties and all that. And you've got Dio and Vinny Appice, the two Americans. Although Dio is an Anglophile, you've got the case of very Brummies. You've got the two most Brummies. And I wonder if Bill had stayed, it would have been a different dynamic.
I think so, because you get the sense Dio. I mean, the great thing about Black Sabbath, heavy, yeah. They invented heavy metal or whatever. But it kind of bubbled up out the music. It wasn't Ozzy Osbourne screaming into a microphone.
What is this that stands before me?
I mean, I should imagine in Ozzy's head he was probably sounding like John Lennon when he was singing that.
Probably, it's probably so, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, Dio, he just puts so much into it. It feels forced. It's sort of like he knows what Black Sabbath is about, and it's sort of like,
he sings like that.
Oh, Black Sabbath, the hell out of this. Black Sabbath plus.
It's more Black Sabbath. There was talk of them re-recording the song at one point. Interestingly, they never did it. Obviously,
What with Dio?
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't suit the Aussie songs. He had to sing them. He just doesn't suit the Aussie songs.
If you go around, that song is actually, if you think about it, it's incredibly plodding. I mean, there's nothing.
Not having Bill makes an enormous difference.
It sounds so. I could imagine at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had 40 odd years of stuff since then.
Yeah.
And it still sounds pretty heavy and pretty mean.
Yeah.
Then it must have sounded like something off from another planet, like sort of okay, this is Satan. This is Satan's music. This just sounds like voice warble and
yeah. But I mean, you've gone from someone who could sing at the start of the 70s and has a limited ability to sing. Really, he can. Ozzy could sing at one point, and it's very good. But there's a huge amount of limitation there. A lot of that is going to be due to technique because he's not going to have any.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously Dio is in the upper register.
Yeah.
And he can sing. Oh!
But that's great. It's not the quality of Ozzy's voice that makes it work. It is almost the limitations. It means there is room there for the awesome riffs of Tony Iommi.
The rest of the band.
And it gives the room, the bass, the room to follow the guitar, sort of thing.
Yeah. And that room has gone away because you've got Dio.
You've got Dio who's occupying all that space.
Yeah. So you listen to this. You don't listen to the drumming. I can't remember the drumming. That's the thing. I mean, you listen to the guitar and you listen to the vocals.
Yeah.
Because it's the 80s. So that's the thing. It's a Dio Iommi band now. You have to remember, Dio had just co-wrote Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, Rising, and Long Live Rock and Roll, and Heaven and Hell. He's going to go on to do Holy Diver. Is the next one. You compare those albums with what those artists did without him. So you think Stormbringer, you think Down to Earth, Since You've Been Gone, and after this we've got Born Again, and before Heaven and Hell we had Never Say Die. You can understand his sort of self-belief. Plus he had Wendy Dio, his manager, whispering in his ear about how great he is. and he should be his band really.
Not another bloody Sharon.
Yeah, kind of. Interestingly, in a very different way, in that he was massively successful in the early 80s. But his approach wasn't to change. His approach was you should do your Dio thing, and that's what he did, and it was the same. And eventually, third album, hang on a minute, this is the same. Whereas Ozzy, and it's Sharon really that is sack the band, get younger people in again. Yeah, do your hair differently, look ridiculous. That's what the fashion is. You can look like a weird old woman with big blonde hair. It doesn't matter. Whereas Dio is Dio and doesn't change. Yeah, like I said, balance of the band is broken. It's because Tony Iommi had to cede control. He had to, necessarily. And that was how it was presented to him. No, we'll be equal shared in the band, you know? Whereas before it was Tony Iommi's band, he called the shots. This is what we're doing. You go to the pub and come back in this time and make me some stuff, you know? So, plus they're all on drugs, you have to remember. And Dio isn't really on drugs very much. And from his perspective, it was like, well, he had to take control because they were never going to make an album. It was never going to get done, you know? So he had to say, no, come on, we're doing this now. You can understand that.
It's the last minute Brummy thing, isn't it? You wait till the very, very, very last minute and then awesomeness occurs.
It's there is a famous anecdote of Tony and Geezer sitting there in the green room. What would you call it? I don't know. Before the show, and the promoter comes in and says, "Okay, when you're ready, guys, when you're ready," and they all just carry on talking. And what are they doing? He goes, "We're again. We're still there. Yeah, when you're ready, guys, when you're ready." They'll just carry on talking.
We're not ready.
And the audience is like, Sabbath, you know. There's not going on. What's going on? And then he has to go, you need to get on stage now. And they all got up, get their guitars and wandered off the stage. That's just typical problems. Oh, it's actually now, okay. So yeah, the power struggle, which I think to a certain extent is just drug related. It's just imagined. Because Tony Iommi was the boss before, I'm the boss. And they're not talking to each other. Travelling on different buses or the other end of the bus. It's interesting that the Aussie band is so different, and the Aussie band is obviously starting from a much lower point of commercially. You know, they've got the Black Sabbath name, and once that was out there and people were playing it, it was easy. But they all deferred to Sharon. Sharon run the Aussie band, not Ozzy, obviously. You know, so Sharon had the plan of recording the live album, but of Sabbath songs. Because that was the last album under the Jet Records label with Don Arden. She didn't want to give him any more Randy stuff, basically. So she said, right, we'll record some Sabbath songs, and that'll be the live album, and we'll release it when Sabbath release their album. Brilliant.
Clever girl.
But Randy was not happy. Randy Rose did not want to do that. But he had to do it, because Sharon said. That was it. You know? there wasn't a discussion. You know, we'll talk more about that on the next review, actually, I think. But you put it like that, it's a bloody good album. They're already fallen out. They're already completely dysfunctional. They don't talk to each other and all that. And you've got Falling Off the Edge of the World. You know, Sign of the Southern Cross, E5150, Mob Rules. E5150 is awesome, and the break into Mob Rules, that's so good. You know, Country Girl and Slipping Away are a bit filler. Turn Up the Night is a weird one. I always felt it's like there's a sort of meatloafness to it.
Mm.
Or something. It just doesn't sit right with me. It's weird, that one. They played nearly all of it live initially. I think only Over and Over wasn't played live. Everything else was. E5150. I think 5150 is evil in Roman numerals. That's why it's called E5150. Because I for years I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe it's ES 150 is like a Gibson guitar or something, or what? No, evil. Bow, wow, wow, wow. So yeah, I mean that's Jeff Nichols, so he deserves some credit. Obviously Dio stepped up and got another album out of him, but also Martin Birch. And it's weird how people talk about Heaven and Hell sounding so good, and this one, well, you know, they had trouble with the sound and everything. And I don't hear that. I'm reliably informed that the sort of lighter sound of Heaven and Hell was a creative decision. It wasn't anything to do with sound quality. It was about making it accessible and played on the radio and all that, I suppose. But I think Mob Rule sounds awesome, all punchy and loud and guitars, you know. And this is the 80s, you know, where in 5 years' time everything's going to sound like it was played in a fridge or something. Treble. So yeah, no bad songs. Oh yeah, of course this was when people. I think maybe by this point people will start to notice every album Dio does has an Evil Woman Look Out Tonight song. Every album has one of them. So this one is Country Girl, which is like a drinking song. Fell in love with a country girl. So it's quite, well, I mean, Lady Evil is quite funny. She's a magical, mystical woman. That was Henry Rollins, because Henry Rollins did some stand-up as well as his stuff, and he did a thing about when you split up with your girlfriend, you need some Dio albums to listen to. Evil Woman, Look Out Tonight. Which is interesting that, the thing about him leaving Rainbow and not wanting to write love songs and all that. He wants to write split up with me woman songs. Here's a quote. We were all going through a lot of problems at the time, most of it related to drugs. This is Tony. Even the producer Martin Birch was having drug problems and it hurt the sound of the record. Once that happens to your producer, you're really screwed. Does it? It sounds great. Maybe from the producer didn't have control of the band, so Dio really was, maybe Martin Birch became more of an engineer, and Dio was calling the shots because Tony was on drugs and didn't notice until afterwards. Oh no, hang on a minute, it's my band.
Yeah, but this is a special deluxe edition, Kev. It hasn't been like re-jigamified, is it?
I regret. See, this is when I still used to get rid of my previous masters. I think I've only bought this twice. I actually prefer the sound of my original CD, which is one of my very first CDs I ever bought. But there's not a lot of difference. It is a remaster, but it's not. There's not a lot of difference. Oh, and of course we've told the Martin Birch story. This is Mob Rules era, where they figured out that he's got like a fear of black magic and things like that. He's really scared of it. So what they did, Tony Iommi, he made a little wooden figure, carved a wooden figure. And he had this briefcase, so he put it in his bag, so he just had it open like that so he can see it. What's that? Nothing. No, nothing. And then he sort of whispered to Geezer, should we go to the meeting? What meeting? What are you talking about? He found him up. And didn't tell him. That's the Sabbath thing. He didn't tell him. And it's in his book, like 30 years later. Can you imagine? Martin Birch must have read that book. I must have thought, bastards. The cover, I think it's great. But an 80s rock cover, that's a really good one.
It is actually.
It's supposed to say Ozzy at the bottom. It doesn't say Ozzy at the bottom.
Where?
I think it's cut off. Hang on. Have we not got the bottom of the painting? Yeah, it's supposed to say Ozzy at the bottom of there. People are insistent they can see and know. Well, when people do the painting, nothing's by accident. But it was painted in like 1971. And all they did was add the stuff at the top, and they have changed the colour. It's been through a filter or something like that, but they haven't written Ozzy and I think you can see that's supposed to be the Z's there. So yeah, we haven't got the very bottom of it, interestingly.
Right, okay.
But yeah, it doesn't say Ozzy. Why would it say Ozzy? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at the album cover for that kind of thing, it kind of suggests you're not really listening to the album. I'll tell you what really encapsulates it for me is as I was listening to it on Spotify, got to the end of the album and it automatically chooses another track to play for you, and it played Electric Funeral.
Oh, goodness me.
And I was like,
yeah.
and I thought, that is so much better.
That's Electric Funeral, isn't it? Yeah. One of the best ones.
It's not a big song. I mean, yeah. It was just. I just thought, no, this is awesome. It actually made Electric Funeral seem better. And that's the problem with this. It's just
rock.
It's just not up to snuff.
Rock music.
You might say they're good songs. Okay, they're good songs, but they're not Black Sabbath songs.
In the 80s.
Yeah, I mean that is, I suppose, an issue.
Mm. Recorded in, I'm sure we've reviewed a few albums, but recorded in John Lennon's house.
All right.
Just after he was assassinated. And at the time they didn't think about it. It's only afterwards they think, bloody hell. And I think Jeff Nichols was the guy who had their bed with there was John and Yoko light switches. Which it'd just been shot. It must have been. You think that would be really creepy, but I suppose they're on drugs, aren't they? So think about it. There's 3 versions of Mob Rules the song. There's the one for the heavy metal movie. They bought this expensive mixing desk and it sounded terrible, so they had to record it again.
Oh dear. We're done. We're going to egg it.
How do you egg it?
Well, you bear in mind Electric Funeral. You don't give it any slack because it's an 80s album. You don't judge it as an 80s album.
No, it's an album. It's an album.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where it's from. Yeah. Does it only get 4 eggs? I think it only gets 4 eggs.
I think that's quite high.
Yeah, it's 4 eggs. Yeah.
I think that's too high, I do. I think that's 3 eggs. Mm-hmm. That does not bode well for the next couple of albums.
They're on top of the world now. It's going to be great. Can't wait for the next album. See you next week.